Ambassador Laura Bennett stood frozen at the entrance to the Galactic Council chambers, her breath catching at the sheer scale of what lay before her. The massive hall stretched out in all directions with curved walls rising hundreds of meters to a transparent dome that revealed the star-filled vastness beyond. Representatives from over 800 species occupied the tiered seating arrangements, their forms varying from vaguely humanoid to utterly alien. Some floated in containment, fields filled with exotic atmospheres. Others stood on specialized platforms adjusting to the standard gravity. The Council headquarters orbited a neutron star at the galactic core, a neutral location selected millennia ago by the founding species. Laura and her small team were the first humans ever permitted to enter these hallowed chambers. The fate of Earth rested on what happened in the next few hours. Move forward. Now the protocol officer urged its voice a synthetic approximation of human speech. The overseers. Await. Laura nodded to her team. 3 specialists chosen for this unprecedented mission: Dr. Marcus Bell, the xenobiologist, Captain Elena Rivera, the military liaison, and Professor Daniel West, the cultural historian. Together, they represented humanity's best hope. The central platform activated as they approached, rising slightly from the floor and illuminating with a soft blue glow. The 7 overseers, the highest authority in council space, arranged themselves in a semicircle before the human delegation. Their forms were deliberately obscured by light distortion fields, an ancient tradition meant to remove bias from proceedings. Species designation: humans of Sol system. The central overseer announced, its voice resonating through the chamber. You approach the council without invitation during a level 1 emergency. What purpose drives such a breach of protocol? Laura stepped forward, her simple gray diplomatic uniform, a stark contrast to the elaborate dress of most representatives. She had fought for this chance against the objections of Earth's united government, risking her career and possibly her life. Esteemed overseers, she began, honorable representatives of the galactic community, I thank you for granting us audience despite the unprecedented circumstances. Humanity comes before you today, not as supplicants nor as conquerors, but as witnesses to a truth you have forgotten. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably, while others leaned forward in interest. The humans had been monitoring council communications for decades through covert means, learning the languages, protocols, and politics without revealing themselves. They knew the council was facing extinction, though few representatives would openly acknowledge it. The central overseer remained motionless. Your species has not been recognized by the council. You have no standing here. Your claims have no validity. Laura nodded respectfully. That is correct. By your laws, we have no formal standing. However, the emergency facing the council supersedes normal protocol. The temporal anomalies spreading throughout council space threaten not just your authority, but the existence of all intelligent life. The mention of the anomalies caused visible reactions throughout the chamber. These rifts in space-time had begun appearing 3 standard years ago. Growing slowly at first, they now consumed entire systems, erasing them from existence. The council had implemented increasingly desperate containment measures, all unsuccessful. Humans are not affected by the anomalies, Daniel West said, stepping forward beside Laura. The professor spoke with the quiet confidence that had made him Earth's leading temporal physicist. Our system remains stable despite 17 documented anomalies forming within our observation range. Impossible, one of the overseers declared. The anomalies consume all matter and energy without discrimination. Marcus Bell, the xenobiologist, activated a holographic display showing comparative data. The anomalies behave differently in human-controlled space. He explained, they form, stabilize, and then dissipate without consuming the surrounding matter. Our research indicates this is not because of anything we do, but because of what we are. The central overseer leaned forward slightly, breaking protocol in a rare show of interest. Explain. Laura gestured and the display changed, showing the evolutionary history of humanity compared. With council species, humanity evolved on a planet with unusual characteristics. Our homeworld orbits a main sequence star on the edge of a spiral arm. Our moon is unusually large, creating tidal forces that affected our evolutionary path. Our planet, experienced multiple extinction-level events that reset our evolutionary trajectory multiple times. So what Elena Rivera interjected, her military training evident in her precise movements. These factors created something unique in our quantum structure. Our consciousness, our very existence, operates on a different frequency than council species. The chamber erupted in sounds of disbelief, skepticism, and in some cases fear. The overseers conferred briefly before the central figure raised a limb for silence. These claims require verification, it stated. If proven, they would explain why our predictive models have failed. The anomalies defy all established physical laws. Laura nodded. I understand your skepticism. We anticipated it. That is why we brought this. She removed a small device from a secure compartment in her uniform and placed it on the platform. It's a quantum resonance imager capable of displaying the temporal frequency of any being. The overseer studied the device, then called forward a representative of the Science Directorate to examine it. The tall insectoid being scanned the device with several instruments before confirming. It appears to be a harmless scanning tool, primitive by our standards, but operational. Laura activated the device. A holographic field expanded outward, scanning the chamber. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly patterns began to form around each being in the room. Most council representatives glowed with similar harmonic patterns, but the humans displayed dramatically different signatures. Their patterns pulsed with frequencies entirely out of alignment with the others. This is our natural state, Laura explained. When the anomalies encounter our frequency, they cannot maintain coherence. They try to consume us as they do with all matter. But our temporal signature disrupts their structure, forcing them to stabilize and eventually collapse. The Science Directorate representative moved closer, fascinated. How did you discover this property? We didn't discover it, Daniel explained. We observed it. The anomalies appeared in our space before they manifested in council territory. We had years to study them while you were just becoming aware of their existence. The central overseer remained skeptical. If what you claim is true, why approach us now? Why not continue your isolated existence? Laura took a deep breath. Here came the difficult part. The anomalies are increasing in frequency and strength. Soon they will adapt to our disruptive effect. We estimate less than 1 standard year before they evolve beyond our natural defense. And once they consume humanity, nothing will stop them from consuming everything. The chamber grew utterly silent. Captain Rivera stepped forward. Humanity has developed a technology that amplifies our natural temporal frequency, she said. The military officer spoke with calm precision. If deployed on a galactic scale, it could extend our protective effect to all council space. We are not here seeking recognition or status, Laura continued. We are here seeking partnership. We cannot build enough amplifiers to save the galaxy alone. We need the Council's industrial capacity, knowledge of spatial topography and distribution networks. Our technology combined with your resources is the only hope for stopping the anomalies before they consume everything. The overseers conferred again, this time for several minutes. The chamber remained hushed as the fate of countless civilizations hung in the balance. Finally, the central overseer addressed the humans. You claim to offer salvation, yet you have hidden from the council for generations. Why should we trust you now? Laura had expected this question. It was the fundamental issue underlying everything else. We hid because we had to, she replied. We observed your treatment of other emerging species, the genetic engineering requirements, the technological restrictions, the cultural assimilation protocols. Humanity is chaotic, diverse, and often contradictory. Everything your standardized development programs seek to eliminate. She stepped closer to the overseers, her voice strengthening. Those very qualities, our unpredictability, our adaptability, our quantum irregularity, are what make us valuable now. They are why the anomalies cannot consume us. They are why we alone might save you. Marcus Bell activated another holographic display showing the scientific principles behind the human amplifier technology. The designs are open, he said. We place no restrictions, on their reproduction. We ask only for cooperation in deployment and a guarantee that Earth will remain autonomous after the crisis passes. The council chamber erupted in debate. Representatives arguing vehemently across species lines, the overseers, withdrew to their private chamber, leaving the humans standing alone on the platform. Hours passed as Laura and her team waited. The representatives continued their heated discussions, some approaching the humans with questions, others keeping a conspicuous distance. Finally, the overseers returned. "We have verified your claims," the central overseer announced. "The anomalies do indeed respond differently to human presence. The Science Directorate confirms your amplifier design is theoretically sound. The Council hereby authorizes emergency cooperation protocols." Laura felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had achieved what many on Earth thought impossible: recognition without submission. However, the giant crystalline doors to the Galactic Council chamber parted with a melodious tone that echoed across the vast entrance hall. Ambassador Diane Kelly hesitated for just a moment, gazing into the massive chamber that few humans had ever seen. The circular room extended upward for hundreds of meters, tiers of seating, arranged in perfect rings around a central speaking platform. Representatives of over 3,000 species filled the seats, their forms varying from the vaguely humanoid to the utterly incomprehensible. Some floated in containment bubbles filled with exotic atmospheres. Others were represented by mechanical proxies, their actual bodies too large, fragile, or otherworldly to attend in person. "This is it," Diane whispered to her team. "We make history today." Dr. Alan Foster, the xenoarchaeologist, nodded his eyes wide as he took in the alien assembly. Professor Maria Lopez, the linguistic specialist, was already murmuring into her recorder, cataloging the diverse communication methods visible throughout the chamber. General William Taylor stood stoically beside them, his military bearing unchanged despite the extraordinary surroundings. The delegation has precisely one standard time unit to approach the speaking platform. The massive insectoid protocol minister announced, its mandibles clicking between words. Deviation from designated paths will result in immediate ejection. Diane straightened her formal diplomatic uniform and led her team forward. The walkway to the central platform was transparent, revealing an artificial star burning beneath their feet, an ostentatious display of the Council's technological prowess. All around them, representatives of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy watched, with varying degrees of interest, curiosity, and in many cases obvious disdain. Diane could almost hear their thoughts. Humans, the newest primitives to stumble onto the galactic stage, barely 2 centuries of spaceflight behind them. Yet here they stood, in the hallowed council chamber, requesting a full hearing. This was unprecedented, bordering on offensive to many of the elder races. The platform rose slightly as they reached it, bathing the human delegation in soft blue light. The 7 high counselors arranged themselves in a semicircle before them, their bodies obscured by traditional light distortion fields that masked their true forms. A practice dating back to the founding of the council. 10,000 years ago, species designation humans from Terrasol system. The first counselor announced, its voice somehow both melodic and grating simultaneously. "You have petitioned for an emergency audience invoking the statute of existential discovery. This statute has not been utilized in over 2,000 cycles. Explain your purpose." Diane stepped forward, keeping her eyes level with where she believed the counselors' face to be: esteemed counselors, honored representatives of the galactic community. She began, her voice steady, despite the tension. "I thank you for granting this audience. Humanity comes before you today with information of grave importance regarding the lost archives of Zendar." A ripple of sound passed through the chamber. Clicks, whistles, electronic tones, and subsonic vibrations, as thousands of translation devices worked simultaneously. The lost archives were a galactic legend, a repository of knowledge from the first civilization, the mysterious precursors who had seeded the galaxy with the foundation technologies that all modern species built upon. The archives had vanished 20,000 years ago, along with the Zendar themselves. The first counselor leaned forward slightly. "We have heard many claims regarding the archives before human. What evidence do you offer that differs from previous false declarations?" Diane nodded to Dr. Foster, who stepped forward, activating a holographic display. The xenoarchaeologist spoke with the quiet confidence that had made him Earth's foremost expert on precursor civilizations. 2. Standard years ago, our research vessel discovered these ruins on an unmarked planet in the Cygnus Arm, a region outside Council exploration zones, he explained. The hologram showed massive structures half buried in blue sand, complex geometric patterns covering their surfaces. We found this inside the primary complex. The hologram shifted, showing a crystalline object roughly 1 meter in diameter. Its faceted surface glowed with internal light patterns shifting in complex sequences. A Zendar memory. Crystal, the second counselor, observed, its voice betraying interest despite itself. Many such objects have been discovered, all degraded beyond recovery. Doctor? Foster nodded respectfully. This crystal appeared similarly degraded. However, he hesitated. Humans possess a unique neural pattern unlike any council species. Our researchers discovered that human brainwaves could partially synchronize with the crystal's resonance, allowing limited access to its contents. Now the chamber erupted in sounds of disbelief, skepticism, and in some cases outrage. The first counselor raised a limb for silence. The assembly gradually quieted. You claim humans can interface with Zendar technology. The third counselor said, its tone suggesting this was almost unbelievable. The crystal technology has resisted all attempts at interface for 20 millennia. Professor Lopez stepped forward. Our neurological structure appears to resonate at frequencies similar to those used in Zendar information storage. While we cannot access all data, we have retrieved significant portions. And what have you found in this supposed interface? The fourth counselor asked, skepticism evident even through the voice distortion. Diane took control of the conversation again. The archives were not destroyed as generally believed. They were hidden intentionally by the Zendar before their disappearance. And according to the data we've recovered, they contain something of unprecedented importance. The complete genetic and technological heritage of the first civilization, including the Starpath network. The chamber went completely silent. The Starpath network, a legendary transportation system that had allegedly connected the entire galaxy through instantaneous travel artifacts, had been found, suggesting its existence, but no functioning components had ever been discovered. The first counselor conferred briefly with the others. Before addressing Diane again, these claims require verification. We will require access to this crystal and any data you have extracted. This is where things become complicated, General Taylor said, stepping forward. The soldiers spoke with measured precision. What we discovered suggests the Zendar hid the archives specifically to prevent the Council from accessing them, a dangerous accusation. The fifth counselor warned, tread carefully. Human Taylor remained composed. The crystal contains historical records indicating a fundamental division among the Zendar regarding the development of younger species. The dominant faction believed in guided evolution, cultural homogeneity, and technological standardization. The dissident faction believed diversity and independent development were essential to the galaxy's future. Diane watched the counselors carefully. Though their forms were obscured, she could sense their discomfort. This directly challenged the Council's fundamental approach to governance. The standardization of technology, language, and even cultural development across all member species was the cornerstone of Council policy. And you believe these dissidents hid the archives? The first counselor said. We know they did. Diane replied, the crystal contains coordinates to the archive's location, but it also contains a warning. The archives will destroy themselves if accessed by anyone using Council-standardized technology or neural patterns. Another wave of sounds swept through the chamber. The implications were enormous. The greatest treasure in galactic history potentially accessible only to humans, a species not even part of the Council. Why bring this before us? Professor Lopez asked. A logical question. Humanity is not obligated to share this discovery with the Council. We could have sought the archives ourselves, then why didn't? You, the sixth counselor, demanded. Diane straightened. There are two reasons. First, while our neural patterns can interface with Zendar technology, we lack the technical expertise to safely access the archives. Without council assistance, we would likely destroy what we seek to preserve. Second, and more importantly, we believe the Zendar were right. She gestured expansively to the chamber. Diversity is strength. The council has spent millennia standardizing technology, language, and culture across thousands of species. Yet the greatest challenges facing the galaxy remain unsolved. The void storms, the crystal plague, the dimensional rifts. These problems resist standardized approaches because they require diverse perspectives, Dr. Foster continued. According to the crystal, the Zendar faced similar existential threats. They discovered that homogeneity led to stagnation. Only through diversity could they find the innovations necessary for survival. The first counselor stood the light distortion field, fluctuating with the movement. You propose an alliance between humanity and the council to recover these archives. Yes, Diane said, but with conditions. The archives must be accessible to all species, not controlled by the council. The knowledge within must be shared freely, not filtered through council interpretation, and most importantly, the council must reconsider its standardization policies. Absolute silence filled the chamber. What you suggest violates the foundational principles of the council, the second counselor finally said. Perhaps those principles need reevaluation, Diane suggested gently. The galaxy faces threats the council's approach has failed to address. For 20,000 years, you've followed one path. Maybe it's time to try another. The massive entrance to the Galactic Council chamber loomed before Ambassador Natalie Adams, like the maw of some ancient leviathan. Its polished obsidian surface stood in stark contrast to the gleaming white corridors of the station. Intricate patterns carved into the material seemed to shift and move, as she watched an optical illusion created by the finest artisans of a dozen worlds. She took a steadying breath, smoothing the front of her formal diplomatic uniform. The small Earth insignia felt impossibly heavy. This is madness, Dr. Ryan Blackwood whispered beside her, his voice barely audible even in the quiet antechamber. They'll never agree to our terms. We're a primitive species by their standards, barely a century into interstellar travel. Natalie smiled tightly. That perception is our advantage, Ryan. Remember that. The third member of their delegation, Trader Olivia Maxwell, adjusted the display case she carried. Its contents represented humanity's only leverage in the coming negotiations, the most valuable substance in the known galaxy and one that only Earth could provide. The doorway parted silently, revealing the legendary council chamber. The circular room stretched upward, seemingly without end, tier upon tier of seating arranged around a central speaking platform. Representatives of over 500 species filled the chamber. Some humanoid, others utterly alien. Some floated in specialized containment fields. Others were represented by mechanical proxies, their actual bodies, unsuited to the station's atmosphere. The protocol droid beside them spoke its synthesized voice, emotionless. Species designation, humans of Terra Sol system. You have been granted 5 standard time units to present your petition. Stand upon the central platform and address the 7. Natalie led her team forward, acutely aware of the thousands of eyes, tentacles, and sensory organs following their progress. Most species in the chamber had never seen a human in person. Earth had maintained a policy of strict isolation since first contact 50 years ago, trading only through intermediaries. Rumors and speculation about humans had spread throughout the galaxy. Some believed they were shapeshifters, others that they possessed psychic abilities. The truth was far simpler and far more valuable. The central platform illuminated as they stepped onto it, rising slightly to elevate them above the floor. 7 beings sat on the highest tier, their bodies obscured by traditional light distortion, fields that masked their true forms. The 7 rulers of the most powerful coalition in known space. Species designation, humans. The central figure announced, its voice translated simultaneously through the neural implants all attendees received. Petition for full trading rights within council space despite refusing membership evaluation. Your species has not completed the standardized technological assessment, nor submitted to cultural compatibility analysis. You stand before this council, without invitation or sponsorship. What justification do you offer for such unprecedented presumption? Natalie stepped forward, keeping her posture relaxed. but confident. Honorable counselors, esteemed representatives of the galactic community, she began. We come before you today not as supplicants but as equals offering something of immeasurable value, something sought by every spacefaring civilization since the dawn of interstellar travel. She nodded to Olivia, who stepped forward, placing the display case on a small pedestal that rose from the platform. With practiced precision, the trader activated the case, revealing its contents. A small vial filled with a swirling golden liquid that seemed to glow from within. Antimatter, the trader announced, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. Stable antimatter requiring no containment field. Indestructible, impossible to replicate, and capable of powering your largest vessels for a century on a single drop. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds. The antimatter problem had plagued the galaxy for millennia. Conventional antimatter required massive containment systems, consumed enormous energy to produce, and remained dangerously unstable. Theories suggested that stable antimatter could exist, but no species had succeeded in creating it. The central counselor raised a limb for silence, which gradually fell across the chamber. You claim to have solved the stability problem that has defied the greatest minds of the council for thousands of years, it said, skepticism evident even through the translator. How is this possible? Dr. Blackwood stepped forward, the scientist appearing more confident now that they had the council's attention. It was not a technological solution, he explained. Earth possesses unique geological conditions that allow antimatter particles to form naturally in stable configurations. We discovered these particles by accident during mining operations. We cannot create them artificially, only harvest them from specific geological formations found exclusively on our planet. The third counselor leaned forward. This claim requires verification. Provide a sample for analysis. Olivia shook her head respectfully. We cannot. The substance becomes unstable when removed from its specialized container, a container constructed from materials unique to Earth. We will demonstrate its properties. But the sample remains in our possession. A murmur of suspicion spread through the chamber. The fourth counselor spoke its voice, harsh. You expect the council to negotiate based on unverified claims. This is not acceptable. Natalie had anticipated this reaction. This is why we brought a demonstration, she said. She nodded to Olivia, who extracted a minute portion of the golden liquid using a specialized pipette. The trader then approached a testing station that had risen from the platform. Observe, she said, as she introduced a single microscopic drop into the analyzer. The chamber's displays activated, showing energy readings that immediately spiked beyond the scale's capacity. The power output from the tiny sample exceeded that of a standard antimatter reactor by a factor of thousands and showed no signs of degradation or instability. The chamber grew silent as the implications became clear. Such power would revolutionize everything from space travel to planetary development. A vessel using this fuel could reach adjacent galaxies, maintain shields against any known weapon, and power terraforming projects on a scale previously unimaginable. The first counselor broke the silence after several moments. You possess a substance of extraordinary value. What do humans seek in exchange? Natalie stepped forward again. This was the critical moment. Humanity requests, full and unrestricted, trading rights throughout council space, she stated. With no requirement to join the council or submit to standardized development protocols. We will maintain our cultural and technological independence while engaging in fair commerce with all species. Fifth counselor responded immediately. Impossible. The standardization of technology, language, and cultural development is the foundation of galactic peace. Allowing an undeveloped species unfettered access to council space without proper integration would create dangerous instabilities. Natalie had expected this objection. The council's obsession with standardization was legendary. Every member species was required to adopt council-approved technology, communication protocols, and even artistic expressions. Diversity was seen as inefficient, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. With respect, Counselor, humanity has observed the results of your standardization policies, she countered. The stagnation of technological development, the homogenization of cultures, the suppression of innovation. No new fundamental technologies have emerged from council space in over 500 years, despite the combined efforts of hundreds of species. The chamber erupted again, this time with sounds of outrage. The sixth counselor rose slightly. A dangerous accusation. Human, the council has overseen the greatest period of stability and prosperity in galactic history. Dr. Blackwood spoke again, his scientific credentials giving weight to his words. We have analyzed council technical databases provided by your trading partners. The evidence is clear. Standardization has created technological plateaus that no species has surpassed in centuries. Identical solutions applied to all problems regardless of context. Identical education systems producing identical thinking patterns. The power of stable antimatter is merely one example of what diversity of approach can achieve, the scientist continued. The very geological conditions that created on Earth would have been terraformed away under standard council protocols. Our chaotic, unpredictable development path led to discoveries your standardized systems could not conceive. Olivia, the trader, added, the choice before the council is simple. Continue with your standardized development and never possess stable antimatter, or embrace the benefits of diversity and gain access to power sources beyond your current imagination. The seven conferred among themselves their distortion fields, merging briefly as they communicated in private. The chamber remained hushed, all representatives understanding the historic nature of this negotiation. Finally, the first counselor addressed the humans. You offer a substance of immense value, yet you ask us to abandon fundamental principles of governance, principles that have maintained peace for thousands of years. This council cannot accept such terms. Natalie had expected rejection. She nodded to her colleagues, who began packing the display case. Then we thank you for your time, she said calmly. We will continue our independent development. The borders of human space remain closed to council vessels. Our antimatter remains unavailable for trade. As they turned to leave, the second counselor spoke. Wait. The council proposes an alternative, humans will. The enormous doors to the Galactic Council chamber parted with a whisper of displaced air, revealing a space so vast that Ambassador Eliza Morgan felt momentarily dizzy. The circular room stretched upward for what seemed like kilometers. Its curved walls lined with tier upon tier of platforms occupied by representatives from thousands of worlds. Some beings floated in specialized containment fields, others were represented by mechanical proxies, their actual bodies too large, delicate, or alien to exist in the standardized atmosphere. The air hummed with the sound of translation devices working to convert the cacophony of languages, clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic signals into comprehensible forms. The human delegation had been waiting 3 standard days for this audience. 3 days of diplomatic wrangling, security scans, and thinly veiled threats. The 4 of them stood out starkly in their simple blue uniforms among the elaborate ceremonial garb of the elder species. Move forward. Now the protocol minister instructed, its voice a harmonious blend of tones that somehow conveyed both absolute authority and thinly veiled contempt. You have been granted 5 standard time units to present your petition. No weapons, no recording, devices, no unauthorized communications. Eliza nodded to her team, Dr. Maya Patel, the xenobiologist, Commander Jason Wright, the military liaison and diplomat, Aaron Winters, the cultural specialist. Together they represented the first official human delegation to address the full Galactic Council, not as petitioners seeking membership, but as representatives of an independent power. The walkway to the central platform seemed to stretch into infinity, a subtle reminder of humanity's insignificance in the grand scheme of galactic politics. Eliza kept her pace, measured, her posture straight, all too aware of the thousands of alien eyes following their progress. The central platform illuminated as they stepped onto it, rising slightly to elevate them above the floor. The 7 high counselors sat on the most elevated tier, their forms deliberately obscured by traditional distortion fields, an ancient practice meant to remove bias from proceedings. The first counselor spoke, its voice simultaneously translated through the neural implants all attendees received upon entry. Species designation: humans of Terrasol system. You stand before this council without invitation or sponsorship. You have not submitted to standard evaluation processes. Your technological development proceeds along unauthorized pathways. Your cultural practices remain unregulated, yet you petition for resolution of a territorial dispute as if you were a recognized power. Explain this presumption. Eliza stepped forward, keeping her gaze steady on the distortion field that concealed the first counselor. Esteemed counselors, honorable representatives of the galactic community, she began. I thank you for granting this audience. Humanity comes before you today, not as supplicants but as neighbors. We seek resolution to a dispute that threatens the stability of 17 systems, including 6, that fall under council protection. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the platform showing a region of space along what humans called the Orion Arm. The disputed territory glowed red, surrounded by the blue of human space and the green of Vrexian territory. The central region has been claimed by both humanity and the Vrexian Dominion. She continued, for different yet equally valid reasons. The Vrexians claim ancestral rights dating back 2,000 years when their species first achieved spaceflight. Humanity claims right of development, having established research outposts, mining operations, and terraforming projects on 14 worlds within the region during the past century. The third counselor interrupted. This dispute should be addressed through standard territorial arbitration procedures. The Vrexians are an associate member species. They have submitted the claim through proper channels. Your species has not even applied for membership. Why bring this before the full council? Aaron Winters, the cultural specialist, stepped forward. The subtle patterns embroidered on his uniform, sleeves marking him as a master of alien customs. With respect, counselor, he said, standard arbitration procedures would disadvantage both parties. They rely on council membership duration as a primary factor in resolving competing claims. The Vrexians would lose significant territory simply because they joined the council relatively recently, compared to other species. We believe a more equitable solution exists, one that benefits all parties, including the council. A murmur ran through the chamber, some representatives leaning forward with interest, others conferring with advisors. The Vrexian delegation, visible on a mid-level tier, watched with their characteristic stillness, their faceted eyes revealing nothing. The second counselor spoke. The humans have not answered the fundamental question, why approach the full council rather than the arbitration committee. Eliza took control again. Because our proposal requires authorities only the full council possesses. She said simply, we are not asking you to choose between human and Vrexian claims. We are proposing a third option. She nodded to Dr. Patel, who stepped forward, activating a new holographic display. The xenobiologist spoke with quiet authority. Our research vessels discovered something unexpected in the disputed region, she explained. The display showed a planet orbiting a yellow dwarf star life signs, unlike anything catalogued in council records. The 17 worlds at the center of this dispute all contain remnants of a previously unknown species. One that appears to have vanished approximately 10,000 years ago. The chamber erupted in sound. Some species requiring immediate translation, others expressing shock or disbelief. The 7 counselors conferred briefly before the first counselor raised a limb for silence. You claim to have discovered evidence of a precursor species, the first counselor said, skepticism, evident even through the translator. Convenient timing, human. Such a claim would indeed require full council. Jurisdiction Commander Wright stepped forward, his military bearing unmistakable, but the lack of ornamentation on his uniform a deliberate choice signaling that humans came in peace. We anticipated your skepticism. Commander, he said, his tone respectful, but firm. We have brought comprehensive survey data, genetic samples, and artifact analysis. Preliminary dating confirms these ruins predated both human and Vrexian expansion into the region. The display shifted, showing ruins of unmistakably artificial origin structures built to proportions that matched neither human nor Vrexian physiology. Strange symbols etched into surfaces that had resisted erosion for millennia. The fifth counselor spoke. The council has catalogued all known precursor species. These ruins match no known typology. Precisely, Dr. Patel replied. This represents an entirely new precursor civilization, one whose technology appears to have developed along different principles than those documented in Council archives. The implications for galactic history are profound. The Vrexian delegation requested recognition. The first counselor acknowledged them, and their representative rose its chitinous body, catching the light. We have examined the human claims. The Vrexian announced its translator, rendering the clicks and whistles into understandable speech. Our own scientists confirm the ruins exist and appear to be of ancient origin. However, this does not invalidate our territorial claim. Our ancestors visited these worlds 2,000 years ago. These ruins were already present. Eliza nodded respectfully to the Vrexian representative. We acknowledge your historical connection to these worlds. Ambassador, that is why we are not asking the Council to invalidate your claim, but to transform it. She turned back to the counselors. Humanity proposes the creation of a joint research protectorate. She said the disputed region would be designated as a protected archaeological zone. Neither human nor Vrexian would claim sovereignty. Instead, we would establish a cooperative research authority with Council oversight to study, preserve, and eventually understand this lost civilization. The display shifted again, showing a proposed organizational structure for the protectorate: equal representation for humans and Vrexians, Council observers to ensure compliance with archaeological best practices, and most importantly, open access to all findings for the scientific community, regardless of species. This solution honors both claims. Eliza continued. Vrexian historical connection would be acknowledged and preserved. Existing human development projects would continue under new oversight. The Council would gain access to potentially revolutionary knowledge, and a territorial dispute that threatens to destabilize an entire sector would be resolved peacefully. The chamber had grown unusually quiet as representatives contemplated the proposal. The seventh counselor spoke for the first time. This proposal has merit, but questions remain. The Council standardized archaeological protocols exist for a reason. Unregulated excavation of precursor sites has led to disasters in the past. Your species has no experience with such matters. Dr. Patel stepped forward again. That is precisely why we propose Council oversight. She said we do not presume to have the experience of species that have studied precursor civilizations for thousands of years. We seek to learn from that experience while contributing our own unique perspective. The Vrexian representative spoke again. The proposal is interesting but requires modification. The ratio of research access must favor Vrexian teams given our longer historical connection to the region. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber parted with a hushed whoosh, revealing an expanse that made Ambassador Lily Hayes pause despite her years of diplomatic training. The chamber stretched upward into darkness, its tiered seating arranged in a perfect circle around a central speaking platform. Each tier housed representatives of different galactic species, some humanoid, others utterly alien to human perception. Hovering light orbs cast an ethereal glow across the scene, highlighting the scaled, glittering, feathered, and gelatinous forms of the assembled dignitaries. This was it, the moment humanity had prepared for, since discovering they were not alone in the universe. Take a breath, Ambassador Mason Porter whispered beside her, his weathered face betraying none of the anxiety she knew he must feel. This is just another negotiation. Lily nodded, though they both knew this was far from ordinary. The Earth United Diplomatic Corps had sent their finest team to represent humanity at this first official appearance before the Galactic Council. After years of operating on the fringes of civilized space, humanity was finally being acknowledged, but not for the reasons they had hoped. The central platform illuminated as they approached, casting their shadows long across the polished floor. The Council Arbiter, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, rose from the highest-tier species designation, humans of Terra. The Arbiter announced, its voice simultaneously translated through the neural implants all attendees received upon entry. You stand accused of unauthorized expansion into protected sectors, technological appropriation, and disruption of established trade routes. How do you respond? Lily felt the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon her. Some curious, most hostile, a few seemingly indifferent. The humans had expected accusations but not a formal tribunal. The diplomatic team had prepared for introductions, Cultural exchanges, perhaps even trade negotiations, not defending their species against charges that could result in quarantine or worse. She stepped forward, her simple blue uniform stark against the elaborate dress of the council members, honored. Arbiter, esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council. She began, her voice steady despite the tension. I thank you for this opportunity to address such an august body. While I understand the concerns raised, I respectfully submit that these accusations stem from a fundamental misunderstanding rather than malicious intent. A rumble of clicks, whistles, and electronic tones rippled through the chamber, the universal translator struggling to keep up with the simultaneous reactions. Misunderstanding, the arbiter echoed. The evidence has been reviewed by the Council. Your species expanded into the Orion Spur, despite clear boundary markers. That is correct, Lily acknowledged, but those markers were not recognizable to our technology. The symbols and energy signatures used do not register on human scanning equipment. Impossible, boomed a bulky representative from the fourth tier, its rocky skin catching the light as it shifted forward. All spacefaring species are provided with recognition protocols upon first contact, and therein lies our first point of contention. Mason interjected smoothly. Humanity never received a formal first contact from the Council. We encountered individual species during our expansion, but none identified themselves as Council representatives or provided regulatory information. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds. The arbiter raised a slender limb, and silence fell instantly. Explain, human. The creature's eyes narrowed. Records indicate contact was established with your planet 2 of your centuries ago. Lily and Mason exchanged glances. They had anticipated this discrepancy. With respect, we have no record of such contact, Lily said. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the platform showing Earth. Historical records: first spaceflight, first interplanetary colonization, first faster-than-light travel, and subsequent explorations, all proceeded without external guidance or intervention. The humans watched as confusion spread through the Council. Chamber's representatives leaned toward each other in hurried conversation. The arbiter conferred with several beings on its tier, their expressions unreadable to human perception. The arbiter finally spoke. The contact team was dispatched by the previous Council administration. Contact protocols require acknowledgement and acceptance, which our records indicate was received. Lily nodded respectfully but firmly. We have thoroughly searched our historical records. No such communication exists in any government. Archive, public or classified. A representative from a mid-tier rose, its gelatinous form shimmering with internal lights. This could be investigated. The Zorthan Collective maintains backup archives of all official Council communications. The central platform expanded as the Zorthan representative descended to join the humans. Its translucent body contained swirling patterns that seemed to form and dissolve in mesmerizing patterns. Lily recognized the species from briefings: an ancient race, known for their perfect memory and unimpeachable honesty. I will access the archives while we continue. The Zorthan pulsed the colors within its body, flashing rapidly. The arbiter inclined its head, then returned attention to the humans. Your second accusation: technological appropriation, specifically regarding faster-than-light technology reserved for Level 3 civilizations. Earth has been classified as Level 2. This classification occurred without our knowledge or participation. Mason replied, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We developed our FTL drive independently through theoretical physics breakthroughs. Impossible. Another voice called. This technology was protected. Lily activated another holographic display showing the evolution of human FTL theory from early 20th century physics through quantum entanglement discoveries to the breakthrough Alcubierre principles that led to functioning warp technology. Or development followed a natural scientific progression, she explained. Our methods differ substantially from Council standard designs, which is why our signatures weren't recognized by your monitoring systems. The Zorthan representative pulsed bright blue, interrupting the proceedings I have completed. My search, the contact records show the mission was dispatched, but the confirmation of delivery bears anomalous patterns consistent with automated generation rather than actual reception. The contact ship logs show approach to Sol system but no record of actual communication transmission. A murmur swept through the chamber. The Arbiter's skin changed hue, slightly darkening at the edges. This is unprecedented, it stated. If verified, this would explain the subsequent independent development of the human civilization without council oversight. This revelation shifted the mood in the chamber. The hostility remained but was now mixed with confusion, and in some representatives, curiosity. Honored representatives, Lily continued. I propose that, rather than focusing on perceived transgressions, we use this opportunity to properly integrate humanity into the galactic community. We come offering unique perspectives, technologies and resources developed along a truly independent, evolutionary path. She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show Earth's artistic, cultural, and scientific achievements. The chamber grew quieter as the representatives observed the rich tapestry of human civilization. Our isolation has fostered innovation, she continued. Our challenges have made us adaptable. You see violations of protocol. We see the natural exploration of a species finding its way among the stars. The Zorthan pulsed again. Research indicates human technological development does indeed follow a different pathway than council species. Their propulsion systems, while reaching similar velocities, use principles not covered by council patents. Their communication technologies utilize quantum principles discovered independently. Their medical advances, particularly in genetic repair, show novel approaches. Mason stepped forward. This misunderstanding presents an opportunity, not a crisis. Earth offers the Council something rare, truly independent innovation. The very technologies you consider appropriated could enhance existing Council systems with approaches your scientists never considered because they followed standardized development paths. The chamber had grown remarkably still. The Arbiter conferred with several senior representatives before addressing the humans again. This situation requires further investigation. However, the evidence suggests a systemic failure in Council protocols rather than human deception. The quarantine recommendation is suspended pending full review. The Arbiter turned to address the full Council. The humans will be granted provisional observer status while we investigate this contact failure and assess their independent developments. For the first time since entering the chamber, Lily allowed herself to breathe normally. This was better than they had dared hope. Not full membership but observer status would give humanity access to Council records, travel rights, and trade opportunities. The door was open as they were escorted. From the central platform to the observer section, a representative of a species Lily didn't recognize approached. Its feline features were set in an expression of cautious interest. Your species developed without guidance, it stated, its tone suggesting this was almost unbelievable. How did you avoid the technological dead ends, the resource wars, the development plateau? Lily smiled. We didn't avoid them. We experienced them all. We made terrible mistakes, learned painful lessons, nearly destroyed ourselves. More than once, but we survived, we adapted, we overcame. That's what humans do.